Welcome to the 7th episode of E Says, P Says, your weekly dose of Black love. My name is Ellyn, the E.
My name is Paul, the P.
1, 2, 3, 4.
For those of you tuning in for the first time, we decided to start this podcast to celebrate a milestone in our relationship. 35 years of wedded bliss, and now we will be married 36 years as of 4/22/25. Each week, we'll share a part of our relationship with you so you can see what has brought us this far and will take us even further. Before we get into today's episode, let's start with a moment of gratitude. I am grateful for my wife, my life, and really just being around during the holidays, not being in the hospital. I'm very grateful for all my friends that I have in the community and at work. So very grateful for my sons and their wives and girlfriends. So just very grateful to be alive. And Ellyn, what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for the pleasure of working with my husband on something that we both enjoy. I'm grateful to make it into a new year. Can't wait to see what unfolds and moving forward. Grateful that everyone is alive and well and made it into 2025 as well. Grateful to be moving forward and celebrating a new year of love and sharing our story and hopefully helping others out there. And in that moment of gratitude, I also wanted to send our thoughts and prayers out to the people dealing with the fires. I'm not sure at this point if they're out, but if they're dealing with the aftermath, Mr. Paul being a Los Angelino, I'm quite sure he has known the weather changes and the ups and downs, but in talking to him, these fires have been the worst and stretched further than they have ever before. So,
Yes, I must piggyback my wife and just admit that I grew up in Los Angeles, and I've never seen the fires do this type of damage within the city limits of LA. So really, really terrible situation for all those involved. So we just really hold them up in prayer.
yes, we do. And if you have the money or you have the time or some extra clothing or anything, there are many entities that are accepting monetary gifts and physical donations of clothing, food, etc., for those in need in Los Angeles.
And I'm sure that as a point, a place or a place of where you could really make a difference is the Red Cross. And then I'm sure if you speak to somebody within the Red Cross, they can give you other entities um, that are accepting, gifts or clothing or anything. All right, so thank you so much for any donations that you're able to provide those needy citizens in Los Angeles.
All righty. And last week we discussed our previous year and our goals for the coming year when it comes to the podcast. Well, the week before, because we had a repeat of episode 2 where you learned where we started dating. So the week before we discussed our goals and for this coming year. And if you missed that episode, please take a listen to episode 5 and enjoy. And if you're a newbie, welcome. And please subscribe so you can catch up and listen to all of the episodes. This week we discussed what is marriage. Boy, this should be good.
So to begin, let us start with the definition of marriage. According to Webster's dictionary, marriage is defined as the state of being united as spouses in a consensual and contractual relationship recognized by law. Uh, the mutual relation of married persons, wedlock, as well as the institution whereby individuals are joined in a marriage.
Well, that definition seems so short compared to what I believe it was when we were younger. However, I guess due to the many changes that have taken place when it comes to what marriage encompasses these days, they want to keep it light and general. And though marriage may be the goal for many, you sometimes do not realize what it ugh, you sometimes do not realize what it means.
You know, when I think about marriage, that definition is really, really curt. I mean, I'm just speaking for myself. You know, to me, when I think about marriage and I think about certain, verbs or adjectives or nouns or whatever parts of language one wants to use, I think about words like selflessness. I think about words like unconditional, uh, because I do feel unconditional love. But I think it's hard to be married and have conditions on your love. You know, though some people feel like that works for them, it's just something I just don't. I think that's something that doesn't work to have conditions. Sacrifice, uh, uh, in sickness and in health. I think about those two words a lot. So what will you do if your spouse becomes ill? How will you respond? What about finances? I think about some of the financial hurdles that happens through marriage or happen within a marriage. You know, if things get tight, are you just gonna get up and leave, or are you gonna hang in there with each other? So there's a lot of different things that you have to uh, uh, consider. Another thing too, not allow to this is for the men. Don't allow yourself to be defined by what society views a man as. Don't get caught up in that definition. What you need to be concerned about, what do you need to do in order to keep the family functioning, keep the family together? Because there's been times when my wife had to pay everything, all right, and I had to cook and clean and make sure the children had baths. What? Don't get caught up in what society feels your role is. What is the role that you need to take in order to keep the family going forward, moving forward? And that's what manhood is. Okay, so just take that in consideration.
Well, that's a good thought on the definition. And when the first part, when you said conditions, yeah, if there were conditions in these marriages, in our marriage,
We would have
we,
been divorced many years ago.
yes, we wouldn't have gotten this far.
No.
We would not have made it this far. So, and to to state from my point of view, when Paul and I first got married, I just considered it a goal. Like you date, you get engaged,
When
you
you say
get
a goal,
married.
you mean marriage being the goal.
Yes,
Yeah, but you
married.
don't think about beyond that. You just think
Yes,
about,
just like making it
yeah.
to the year 2000. When I was sitting in the cafeteria with some of my classmates, and we were like, "Wow, we'll be 35 years old." And you don't think of past like at that point, you're not thinking past the year 2000 because a lot of things were said, and we didn't even know as a country if we were going to live past the year 2000. So it was it's a lot once you get into a marriage or
Yes.
and realize what the ramifications are. So I did not realize the legal or moral obligations until when I first got married.
Mm-hmm.
And then you bring in children into that picture and you realize there's no book you can read, class you can take, or advice that can make it all work for you and your partner. I don't completely negate books, classes, or advice, but it's not a one size fits all.
Hallelujah. It is not. And you're going to go through some bumps in the road and some crossroads. It is not no book out there. You got to live it, honey. You got to live life and live your own experiences and work things out. Okay? And another thing, your friends can give you all kind of advice. But we have to remember, your experience is not their experience or experiences. Okay, so everybody's lives are different. Okay, and your life is different. So just keep that in mind.
And by the way that I'm looking at that definition, the part that is missing for me is marriage is work. It's another job.
Yes.
And as with a job, you have to learn all of the aspects of the position and figure out the best way to handle those parts. And it takes a while to figure that part out. Then here comes the baby. If you and your partner choose to move forward, have children, depending on when that point is, or if you don't have children, even if you have a pet, it's the same
Right.
the same methods. That's another entity involved in your relationship. So you have to stop that part of learning about each other in a marriage. And now you have to take in this third party, this little person that you have to take care of. And depending on your partner, will they understand as a mom? Because usually, the mom and the baby are connected to each other depending on if you're nursing or if how the care is going, if you're going to be the sole care provider for the months until they're able to go to daycare or the whatever's happening in the family. So is your partner going to understand, hey, I'm not in second position anymore, I'm third? Or will they leave? They can't take it. So if your partner stays and you make it through the children's stage, you turn to this person after the kids are off to college and you're like, I like you, so let's continue learning about each other. Or I've had enough. The kids are going, I'm out.
And this is something that has happened, or it happened during the pandemic, where people were talking about, the kids they were empty nesters. Some people, not all. Some people were empty nesters. They was just them and the spouse in the household, and some people got along very, very well. Like me and my wife, me and Ella got along very well during the pandemic. However, there were other people who did not get along so well and ended up getting a divorce during the pandemic, or as soon as the pandemic was over. So, you really have to say to yourself, okay, me and this person, even though we've been together for a long period of time, do we like each other? Are we friends? I mean, do I really like her? Or do I really like him? Or am I friends with him? Or am I friends with her? And you have to come to that realization. And a lot of times you don't come to that realization until you just in there with that person by yourself. And then that's when you'll come to when the kids are out of the home. Then you're like, okay, I can live with this person. but
Yeah.
but sometimes it takes that time to where you and her or him together.
Yeah. No, I agree. And going into the pandemic, we did not know that we were going to be locked down in the house like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the worst part came when we both caught COVID. And you were in we had we had left the boundaries of Maryland. That was our first mistake.
Right.
We had gone to a family funeral, and it was us and our younger son. So all three of us were together this whole time, but only my husband and I caught COVID. So we can't figure out whether it came from when we traveled or whether when because since he teaches, he went to work and he caught it and brought it to me. But he went to the hospital. So he was treated in the hospital. And of course, if anybody dealing with, well, everybody dealing with COVID knows in those early days, that the beginning, before the shutdown, people didn't know what was going on. And I was sitting at home just hoping that he wasn't receiving any of these treatments, because it was like ventilator, no ventilator. It was like can't breathe, breathe. It was just a whole lot of stuff in the beginning because nobody knew. This was new to everyone. So once he got sick and he's being treated in the hospital, I go to get tested. And by the time I get tested, I'm fine. But a couple of days later, I'm sick and I'm in the house by myself. And the only thing I wanted to do was call my son to come and just have somebody else in the house just to make sure that I was okay. But I was so afraid that calling him away from school may cause him to get sick. So we suffered and prayed apart. So my husband would call me when he was awake, and I would talk to him until one of us would fall asleep. And then when I was awake, I would call him. And, things were chugging along fine. I think, what is it, 2 or 3 weeks you were in the hospital?
Yep.
And it was like there was no ceremony. Like he said he was getting out the hospital. He was like, come and get him. And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get myself together to come and get him, and he comes through the door, and I'm like, "Well, how did you get out the hospital?" He said, "They just nobody's watching. They just let me out." I was like, "My God, it's just chaos out there. Everybody is just doing whatever, because anybody that's been to the hospital, they watch you like a hawk, especially when you're leaving to make sure that somebody is there to pick you up. They don't let you out the hospital."
Right.
So he did have the car with him. So he went and got in the car and he came on home. I was thankful that he was home and he was safe. And I was also thankful that I did not have to leave because I sure did not have the energy to do so.
Right.
But we made it through. And the worst part for me, I don't know, because they were giving him drugs. But the worst part for me was losing my taste and smell. Now that really freaked me out because I was in the house by myself. I said, "Well, if this bad boy goes up, it's a wrap because I can't smell anything and I can't even like taste to taste the smoke or anything." But fortunately, we made it through.
Right.
And then when everything was shut down, because of the type of people we are, everybody kind of went to their own space in the house. So we weren't all over each other. We've never been all over each other as a family.
Right.
So I think that worked for us. The other thing is we were friends. As a couple, we were friends. I'm working, he's working, our son is in the house and he's studying. So we met at meals, trying not to get too close to each other because nobody wants to get sick again.
Right.
So,
very important to be friends. I can't stress that enough.
But I don't even think we had an argument. The only thing I would have issue with is my husband loved to come out of his man cave into the kitchen. And most families, the kitchen is the center. But because he had to be at work so early, I could hear him, and he would wake me up at 7 when I didn't have to move until 11. So that was our only conflict. And what he would do after that is he would wait in his man cave until I went to work, and then he would come up to the kitchen for the second part of his day, which I appreciated it.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Difficult. It was difficult times.
It was, but
it's a big adjustment for everybody.
Yes, we made it through because they said when they lifted the restrictions, the line was around the corner at some of these courthouses.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, people were really getting a divorce. Really getting divorced. Were lined up to get divorces.
It was sad that people were going through that.
I appreciate it. But how else do you learn who your partner is?
Right.
And because I was doing customer service, I learned that one lady I was talking to, she was like, people were on the verge of divorce before the pandemic, but they struggled they struggled it out, or
Well, they tried to fight through it.
Yeah, but as long as they didn't have to be there during the work hours or see this person 24 hours a day, and everybody was kind of moving about their lives, it was fine.
Right.
But now I have to see you 24/7, and all of those things that I do not like, I have to see and deal with. And a lot of people, this was one lady left during the pandemic. She got on the phone and she saw an apartment virtually and she moved. Yeah. I was like, whoa. Yeah.
Wow.
So everybody, and when the courthouses opened back up, she said her papers were in. And she said he did not believe that she was leaving. I was like, I guess you showed.
He believed when he saw her paperwork.
I think the other reason
she was serious about that.
She was serious. I mean, we've decided over time, because as people argue, the D word is thrown around, and explained to my husband a few years ago before the pandemic. Let's stop throwing that around because we know neither of us are going to do it.
Right.
So we've stopped using that word. But knowing your partner is very important in the marriage process.
Yep.
And a lot of people say marriage is just a piece of paper, a financial transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure about Paul, but I'm confused. So you're concerned about money, but you will give a baby or several women with one or many of your children, at least when you get married. And if there are no children involved, a divorce will cure the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, depending on the assets, there may be some loss, but the party is gone, never to be seen again. When you have a child with that person and that they are in your life forever,
Yep.
capital FOREVER, because you cannot divorce a child or that financial responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a good parent, you want to be in your child's life and will deal with that crazy if you have to. However, how much money are you spending now? Because children are money pits.
That's right.
So let's think. Get married and divorce or have a person in your life forever, and I mean forever. Ballet recitals, weddings, funerals, picnics, reunions, barbecues. It's endless and ongoing. And my examples are for couples that don't are for couples that didn't end well. If you are cordial and can be friendly, none of this is an issue.
Right. But it's very important to understand that when you have a child with somebody, you're gonna have to deal with that person, whether you want to or not. You know, and you know, if you get married and you don't have children, well, you don't have to deal with that person anymore. You don't have to deal with it if they're not. You never had children with them, right? But once you have a child with somebody, you're gonna deal with them forever, whether you want to or not. Okay, so that's something to be aware of and stay uh, aware of. Be careful who you have children with. Of course, you should be careful who you get married to, right? But also be careful who you have children with. All right. And it's like it's a double whammy when you get married and have children with somebody. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, so to my people that say, it's a piece of paper or financial responsibility, I say make sure you consider all sides before
Right.
you make that choice. Because a child is the 18-year responsibility. A marriage, no children, a walk to the courthouse.
That's right.
And yes, it was not love at first sight for your favorite couple. However, throughout our breakups and makeups, we became friends. Well, we really had no choice. We went to a college of 2,000 students, and only about 100 of those were Black, Latino, and other. So if there were any events, we always saw each other.
Right. Yep. And I would always see her at the different events. All right. Sometimes I would even see her in the chapel or the library. Yes, that is true. That's one advantage of going to a small college, particularly if you're a student of color. And now let me just say this: you could marry a white person. So, but I'm just saying, back in those days when we were growing up, a lot of us came from like majority of neighborhoods that were people of color, or maybe some of the schools we went to might have been majority white, but even some of us came from majority Black or Hispanic schools. So we weren't really at that particular time being 18. I know me in particular being 18 years old, it was probably less of a race thing than it was like a class issue for me, right? So it's just it was an interesting dynamic. Because even some of the Black kids that went to this college, I couldn't relate to it in some respects. So it was definitely a different, whole different type of dynamic for me. Go ahead, dear.
And finally, that marriage piece of paper allows a lot. Why do you think the LGBTQ plus community fought for the right for right to marry or to have a civil union? Do you know the many legal things you are entitled to as a spouse? Insurance, transfer of property, being able to communicate your partner's wishes if they become ill,
Ill.
being able to make a decision for your partner if they are in a compromised position. Inheritance, benefits such as Social Security, Medicare, disability, and leave from work, and next of kin and visitation in the hospital. And if you do get divorced, you are entitled to alimony in some cases, and definitely child support if there are children. So consider these things when you choose to cohabitate. Also, consider the relationship with your partner's family. If it is a contentious one, you may want to get things in writing and have your partner state the same. Otherwise, you could be homeless and funless if something happens to your partner.
So let me just say this: this is only if it's a partner situation, not if you're married.
Yeah,
Because if you're married, you're protected
it could.
for the most part. All right,
It,
and also always pay attention to how your partner treats his mother or father or her mother or father or siblings. Okay, because just watch that family dynamic because they could be your partner. Your partner could be a good person, but their family could be rough. So, do you want to be in that kind of a situation? So, it's just something to think about.
and I can think about it
You
because
know,
I mean, I I don't speak ill of my in-laws, but I will just say it's a it's a like situation. Like they had no choice. He married me. However, he stood up for me and let them know I was his person. And if your person is not willing to stand up for you, be it male or female, then that's something else you should consider
right,
because their family, if they don't stand up, it's not your family, it's theirs.
right,
They're the one that has to say something. If they don't say anything, this is going to be a problem moving forward for the
right. And
rest of your life.
so you have to make sure that your partner is willing to stand up for you in that kind of a situation.
However, I will say once we said I do, my mother-in-law stood down. She was like, "Y'all married now."
Right.
So that was an understanding that she had from her Catholic upbringing, which I appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
So we came to a mutual respect of each other. You're my son's wife, and I
Right.
respect you. Y'all do you over there.
Right.
As long as you're not bringing it to me, I'm not getting it involved.
True.
So
My mother definitely respected marriage. She
yes,
was Catholic, so she had a real high respect for marriage. Even if she didn't like my wife that much, but she respected the union.
yes. And fortunately, on my side, my family is respectful. So whether you have a partner or you're married, when it comes to decisions like these, they they step back. However, some are not, and in that case, lots of problems can be caused by the parties in the family when a member becomes ill or passes away. The clause can come out, and even if there is a will and you're not married, the family may challenge it. So make sure to consider all sides and do a pro and con list before you decide to get into a long term relationship as opposed to a marriage. Even if you are in a relationship with a person that has a black divorce, and some of you may wonder what that is. That's when people, being a person of color, I only know about black people that do this. So you just leave the relationship. You just go on and you get a new place, and no paperwork is ever done to complete the divorce process. So and that was another thing that intrigued me. It's like, well, no, it didn't really intrigue me because my bio father and mother actually did get a divorce, but I have quite a few family members. They got a black divorce. They just left. Everybody just started living their own lives, and so also, the surviving spouse still has rights to all the benefits above the Social Security, the retirement, and depending on whether some men in the relationship and don't change the beneficiary information.
Right.
So so when you make your choices on your next of kin, or when people can be, really vindictive about certain things, you have to make sure that everything is in place. And even an ex-spouse, if they if they were married more than 10 years, you may be entitled to some of these benefits, the retirement and the Social Security.
And it's good to look into it
Yes.
to make sure that things are done properly.
And
That's
I'm
very important.
Yes, and I'm quite sure you're like, well, you guys have been married so long. Of course, you're advocates for marriage, and that's, I mean, yes and no. I
Yeah.
mean, marriage works for some, partnerships works for other,
Mm-hmm.
and fortunately, the world has moved forward. You can own properties and stuff as joint tenants with rights of survivorship and things of that nature, as opposed to when we got married, these weren't options.
Right.
So, so we gave you a lot to think about when it comes to what is marriage. So, what is marriage for you?
So this is what we want you to think about. So what does it mean to be married? Um, you may not have, you may not agree with us. You may not agree with our sentiments, but that's okay. Some of you may not want to be married at all, and that's fine too. But we just want to give our experiences to you and what we've gone through.
Well, now it's time for our mock minute.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure because it got so cold. We're here on the East Coast these past couple of weeks. Just cold. I don't know how we've met our goals and challenges. So, I mean, what do you think? I mean, yes, when it comes to being more diligent in our recording process and getting our product out to our listeners, I think, or
Yeah.
subscribers, we've done better with
Yeah,
that.
we're working on it. We're work in progress.
And when it comes to health, Mr. Mock is taking some turns and doing better and trying to get more energy and go out in that cold and walk for a couple of moments.
Yep. We're still working.
So we're working. And then another thing that another thing that I've done, I don't know if Mr. Mock has done. I watched the Luther documentary, and I had the privilege of many years ago. My cousin took me to see Luther with a couple of her friends. I think she got tickets from work, and it was the time that me and Mr. Mock were on one of our breaks. So I was feeling low, and she took me. She took me to the Luther concert. Before that, I was not a Luther fan. Like I would listen to the stuff on the radio, whatever. But after I walked out of that concert, I was like, Luther gives a show with a capital S. I really wish that Paul and I had been able to share that moment, but I do think by the time we got married, Luther I think he had a stroke or something,
I
and he
think so.
wasn't touring before, so we didn't have the time. So if you're not busy, check in on your challenges, think about what marriage is, and check out the Luther documentary on CNN.
All right. So disclaimer, we are not therapists, just hoping to help others through our crazy love story. Shout out to everyone who took a few moments out of their day to listen. We hope that anything you heard was helpful.
Is there someone or some cause in your life that has gone beyond your expectations or given more than expected? Well, why don't you show your appreciation by giving your time, talent, or funds to them? And please feel free to share who or whom you appreciate. It feels good to say thanks. Or you can send a note or leave one on our social media platforms to thank someone you know working hard at whatever it is that they do that is making lasting change in their field or world. And if you feel so moved, please check out our merch at our Etsy store, Ease Tees, EZZTEES, or use the Linktree link. You can also check out Paul's book on Amazon, Vignettes of a South Central Sun, Part 1 by Paul G. Mock. If you wish to support, please fill our cup by checking out our Buy Me a Coffee site. It's buymeacoffee.com/E says P says. All your support is much appreciated and will be put to good use. And if we do get any donations within these next few months, we will be sure to forward a portion of that to the LA Fires.
Thanks for joining us this week on E Says, P Says, your weekly dose of Black love. Check us out on our social media platforms, Facebook, E Says, P Says, Instagram, at E Says, P Says, TikTok, at E Says, P Says, YouTube, at E Says, P Says, and on X at E Says, P Says. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platform so that you don't miss any of our episodes. And feel free to leave any questions or comments on one of our social media platforms. See you next week.
1, 2.